Welcome everyone. In whatever time zone, I was gonna say good morning, and I realized that's only for my time zone. Yeah, so I think we are slowly admitting people in. It's never too late to put in your question, either in the Zoom chat or you can put on Slido, which I'm showing on the screen right now. If you have any, we'll mainly be going through or talking about the first assignment today. So if you have any question, you can leave it in the Zoom chat or on Slido. Okay. So how do we want to go about this?
Maybe I can just say a few words about the assignment, and then I can let you just take it from there and go through the questions as you like. I think the point of assignment 0 is obviously it's called 0 as a kind of warm up. You should expect assignment 1 to be quite a lot harder, and it will take you more time. So if assignment 0 is already way too difficult for you, I think that's in a sense a good way to test whether you are suitable for the course. And basically the idea was to set up such that assignment 0 should be maybe mildly challenging, but definitely not painful. And if it's already painful, then maybe you anticipate things are just going to get much harder from here. So this should be pretty straightforward, and accordingly, we didn't see a lot of questions. And I think people are just, also it's holidays. I know that happy holidays, and probably some of you just find it very easy and have already done it or planning to do it tomorrow. So probably today's session doesn't have to be long. I should let maybe Cathie take it from there.
Okay. So I guess we'll go through some of the questions on the Slido, or is there any, I guess, administrative questions about, how you hand in the assignments, everything like that before we begin? Is anyone still having trouble getting into the Discord channel? So I just sent out a new link via email. And so you should be able to get into the server via the new link, and then you will find our channel under technical. Okay, so then let's go through some of these questions. Let's see, should we start? Well, I guess we'll start with the more detailed ones that are from the, right. So I got a question in the Zoom chat about how do we submit the assignment, right? So you can either send to us via email, or you can just DM us on Discord. So for email addresses starting with with the letter A through I and numerical characters, you'll be sending it to me. So my Discord handle is SCS. So and then if the rest of the class, which is from J to Z, starting with the first alphabet of your email, then you'll be sending your homework to Hunter. If I work with another student, can we submit the same PDF? I think the short answer should be no. So I mean, even if you exchange answers on or discuss about how you write the program, you shouldn't have the same answer, at least for the third question. So
yeah, and maybe I can add to, like, I think we just kind of decided today for the final project, we actually encourage you to form groups and do it in pairs. I mean, large groups are basically very hard to coordinate. You should think very carefully before you get into a group of larger than 3. But for final project, we encourage people to work in small teams if you'd like to, if you're sure that you have a good rapport to coordinate with the other student. But for assignments 0 to 3, definitely we want it to be your own work. You can chat with other students and try to learn from each other, but you're not supposed to do the assignment together as a team.
Right. So I think that goes the administrative things. Let's see how we're going to do this. Should we start from the top, I guess?
Also, Cathie, can I add one more thing about, I think some people were reached out by someone who may have been asking for like your Ethereum wallets. Obviously, don't give over any personal information. This course will never require you to do that. So I think everyone was probably knew what to do, but just to reiterate. So yeah, and so if someone does reach out to you about it, yeah, you can just ignore them or let us know. So yeah, thanks.
Right. So let's start with the, I guess, this question right here. I guess essentially someone just spelled out the solution for us in a bit. Of course, it's still your responsibility to implement that, but essentially, yes, so you're correct. So a transaction is a change of state. So if you can somehow reduce the number of change of states, then you should be able to reduce the number of transactions in the transactions that needs to take more than one voters, right? So the point of the question is that you're never really trying to give the right to voters to one individual, right? So you're always trying to give the rights to voters to multiple voters, and in a way, then there is some way that you can reduce the number of transactions by somehow more efficiently assigning the voter rights to more than one person. Okay. Let's see, is there anyone in the waiting room? No. Right, and for the stores protocol, I don't think we'll be going through it today. Since Pyros will be coming back for another class, and he will definitely be in the better position to explain this well. Yeah, so we'll probably ask him to try to see if we have time on Thursday again, so that we can have some time to go through the stores protocol. Or we can also have a discussion on Discord. So if you have any specific question, right, rather than a general request to explain the Snores protocol, then we can discuss there as well. So
yeah, I actually run it by Pyros earlier, and he said he's fine. He can go over it next class too. So Thursday, he should be able to take us through that briefly. So.
Okay. So let's see. Right, so this is a very broad question about the Circum library on the use of signals, template parameters, and the concept of unknowns. So I know on the assignment, we should have directed you to the Circum documentation. Let's see. Right, so here you should have be able to read most of the, sorry, under the Circum language, you should be able to read most of where what you will need for at least assignment 0, and a little bit of background of how Circum works. So we do understand that it might be very different from, the logic that you're used to, or well, it's very different for us as well compared to other programming languages. So in particular, I think really what you need to pay attention to is the signals and templates. So since this is one of the assignment questions essentially, then I don't think we're going to go through every bit of what is a signal, what is a template parameters, and the concept of unknowns. But if you have any particular part of the documentation that you don't understand, right? So if you point out to specific parts of the documentation that we don't understand, then we can have a discussion from there. Does that sound like a plan, Hunter? Or do you think we should go through?
Yeah, I think specific questions are always going to be better because we'll know how to answer it. I think, yeah, the best thing you can do for this is the documentation is going to be a very rich resource, and the tutorials are very good. And so spending the time going through it maybe once or twice. I know for me, like, I kind of felt like I was maybe like in a fog going through the first part, and then things started to make a little bit more sense as I got farther along. And then a second time through, it was really good at consolidating everything. So if you're still having some time, maybe come back.
Yeah, I asked this question. Mostly, I think the question box is limited in the number of characters, so I could not elaborate the question further. But it's mostly has to do with so there's the parameters, that is the input, and there are also the unknowns that are usually, you know, it's the signal, right? And sometimes I find it difficult to say implement something and determine which one should be the signal and which one should be unknown. For example, in the homework, we have the so the less than, right? We wanted to prove something that's less than 10, and I looked at the library. I had to do the bit shifting by hand to understand, you know, what the bit shifting was doing, and why would there need to be the number of bit count in the input of the function. It's the parameters, right? So things like that, it's hard for me to wrap my head around. Why would the bit count be the parameters and the input would just be the number? Like, why don't we just have the bit count being the input signal as well as the actual number, if that makes sense?
Okay. So so I guess that have to do with the compile time, whether it's compile time constant. Let's see, where was the part that talks about this? I don't quite remember where was the part that talks about this. Was it syntax, constraint generation, control flow? Let's see, signals, templates, template components. I remember there was some part in the documents that talks about whether you can compute unknowns. Right, so first of all, signals are also considered unknowns. So I want to point out one little bit that when you said about, so unknowns are a broad class of different things, including signals and also the parameters that goes in. So I guess the short answer is I don't see a way why you can't use the the number of bits that you required as an input as well. But I guess most of the time it's just used in the as an input to the function because of whatever the program requirement is. So say if you want a 64-bit integer, you wouldn't really want to let the user to input that. But I don't see a reason why you can't have the num2 bits parameter. Like I don't see the reason why you can't write a template to have the number of bits as an input signal as well. But the way that they formulate the examples in their own library is just the more common usage, which typically in the program you will already specify, say you want a 64-bit integer or you want a 32-bit integer. So it's kind of weird to let the user to put that as an input into the into the template itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so when we call the templates, right, I imagine in the library, right, the number of bits is, I don't know if I'm using the correct terminology, but I would just call the input to the template as the as parameters, and the signal input as, you know, signal. And so is it legal to have both the bits and the actual number as signals? Because when I read all of these examples, I saw that sometimes we cannot do comparison with the signal, and you know, other times we can. So it's just confusing to me. I don't have a good framework to understand when would it compile, have a compiled error is non-quadratic constraint versus when it is valid. So that part is unclear to me.
Right. So non-quadratic constraint, without going into the detailed mathematics, really, when you try to compile it, it will tell you that it's a non-quadratic constraint. But going back to your question about comparing, so the other thing is you will realize that you can really have a constraint and to at the same time go well with relational operator. So that's another thing that you need to pay attention to, is if we look at the, so here, really relational operators were just supposed to work with variables. So a third class of objects that you will have in the Circum is variables, which are neither input or the parameters into the function. So typically you can only do relational operators with non-signal stuff. So as long as you add a kind of relational operators or some of the arithmetic operators, not all of them. So if you do, I think quotient, remainder, those are, sorry, quotient and remainder and modulo, those are typically the I don't think modulo is one of it. Quotient and remainder, those are the typically non-quadratic operator that you cannot really apply in a constraint. Right. So relational operators and some of the arithmetic operators will not be quadratic. And so, right. But going back to the questions about whether the parameters could be turned into a signal input as well, I would really encourage you to just write a function, write a template to try to figure that out. I don't see the reason why it can't be an input, but you will have to check. I will see that probably you will have to, yeah, I don't see the reason why you can't turn the number of bits into an input as well. It should compile all right.
Okay, so what is the point of having the parameters in the signal? Like why don't we just use all signal inputs, and why would we want the parameters? Right.
So you have to remember the signal input is the things that the users would input as in the input JSON to create the proof, right? While parameters are usually things that are the system requirements. So say if I am making a game and I only have a game board that is that big, right? So something that is, I don't know, 100 times 100 in bits, okay? Let's say in bits, right? Then in my function, I would put in a parameter that say 100 in the number 2 bits, because I know I have constrained everything to be smaller than 100 bits, right? I don't want to rely on the user to tell me that I need 100 bits, because that would probably overflow what I have in my program. So that's typically why those are the things that they put as parameters, because those are the things that when the programmer write the program, right, we specify as a requirement of our system, is that we want the numbers to be of certain bits, not up for the user to decide. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Let's see. So. And then we have 2 more questions about Circum, both from Elise. I think, is there a Circum debugger, right? So if you realize there isn't really a Circum debugger, there is an extension written by the author on VS Code, but that's still not a debugging tool. That's just a kind of syntax highlighting tool. So really, the first thing is just to, I guess, read the error log that the author has. So I think I have an example here. So some of the time, I'm not sure if you can see it well. So I was writing a Circum file here just now, and I was encountering an error. So most of the time, if it's an error within the syntax of your Circum file itself, the author should have written some pretty good error log, right? So typically, I think it's quite specific as to whether it's the problem of non-quadratic constraint, whether it's a problem of calling unknown symbols in this case, or whether it's, I can't, there is another type of common error that I can recall right now. But so yeah, so that is typically if there's a syntax error inside your file, there should be pretty good documentation on it. But we do realize that because Circum is such a new system, sometimes you will encounter errors that you don't see. You don't see as a very detailed log as to what happened. And in this case, we'll really encourage you to file a GitHub issues to the author. So if you look at their GitHub repo, there is pretty much a lot of issues that is filed all the time, just because this is so new. We realize there is a common issue when it goes into Snark.js as well. So pretty much if it's anything that it doesn't identify in the error log that the author provides you, highly recommend you to just go on to the GitHub issues and file a case with him. I think he's pretty good at replying and responding to errors pretty quickly, because he is actively maintaining this. Oh yeah, this is well, this is just a toy case that I was providing here. I know that the file is missing, but the file is missing because of some other reason. So yeah, but thank you, Tuga. Yes, I know the file is missing. Right, so that's the part of Circum debugger. So the short answer is no, there isn't really a good Circum debugger at the moment, other than the error log that the author provides. So, but I mean, you're also welcome to share kind of sections of your code, maybe not your entire code, right? Because this is your homework. But if you say you've written a constraint and you're not sure why it's non-quadratic, I think you're welcome to post it in the Discord channel, and we can all kind of look at it and see, where is it, where the problem lies, together with the error message. I think that's kind of what we hope that the Discord channel is for. So that's the that's the idea of kind of the peer-to-peer help that we're going to provide for each other. Okay. And we have a last one for now, unless, I mean, it's not a last one for today. You can keep submitting questions in the Zoom chat or on Slido if you wish. But the last one on here was saying that, also from Elise, saying that Asks us to prove a number is less than 10. Do we need to handle the case where the number is negative? So originally, when we've written the question, we were only thinking of positive numbers. But of course, if you want to go above and beyond, you're welcome to extend it to negative numbers as well. There's just one thing that is quite special about Circum is that their negative number isn't really negative. That was right there. So if you look at their documentation on relational operators, below there is the definition of negative numbers there, which is totally in the wrong section of the documentation website. But here it tells you that actually negative numbers are the ones that are the upper half of the allowed integers, I should say. So the number of allowed integers is P in this in the Circum architecture. And then for everything that is above half of P is their negative numbers. So in other words, if you will realize if you type in a negative number in input.json, it will not work. What it really would work is if you put in a number that is P minus that negative numbers that you have, the value of the negative numbers that you have. So that's the part of negative numbers. So, but the homework doesn't require you to have it work for negative number as well. But if you want to go and try it out whether you can make it work for negative numbers, you should be able to. But there's just a little bit of shift that you have to do before you can use the same function that you use for positive numbers. So that's the, right. So, I mean, but also for negative numbers, all you really need to do is check that it's negative, right? If you check that it's negative, then you apply a different set of rules. So that's on negative numbers. Let's see. We have a question in the Zoom chat. It says that I didn't understand how a transaction works properly. A function that creates 5 structs of 5 times n bytes costs less gas than 5 transactions of n bytes each. Okay. So I'm not sure if I'm an expert in Ethereum transactions as well. So let's see. Let's see if we can find anything. But I think the short answer is yes, that is true. At least empirically, we have already found out that's true. Especially if you have done your assignment 1. I guess how I understood it was that there is the less verification from when the chairperson initiate the delegation. So that was my understanding. So let's see.
I want to link to I did a little Googling for this question as well. Here is a Medium article on using structs, and there may be something about, they're saying to use structs as a way to reduce gas consumption, and they may specify what precisely may allow that. I mean, if there's maybe less going on, but yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I'm gonna have to look into it myself.
Yeah, so I think that also goes back to one of the question on Slido is saying that, you know, a transaction is really a change of state. So a transaction is not like one operation that you do, right? So really to kind of look through how you can count the number of transactions is count how many times the states have changed. And that's also the official kind of definition of what's a transaction. So you can also, so this is the official Ethereum documentation on what is a transaction. And it talks about how whenever there's a change of state that needs to be broadcasted, there's a there's a transaction. So I think looking into the article, it might talk a little bit more about how that.
Yeah, I mean, there might be some underlying memory motivation reason as well. Because as I'm reading through this thing, I guess I didn't realize this, but if you place data types of similar type next to one another, rather than like say having uints mixed with like strings and bools, it's better memory wise. And so therefore it's lower gas.
Right. That's an interesting question. Hakwan, do you want to jump in and talk about that? Or maybe Hakwan has stepped away. Okay.
Sorry, which one are you talking about?
There is a question in the Zoom chat. Say, I love the course so far, but I can't help but wonder what is the incentive for Harmony for providing this course, and why ZK specifically?
Okay, interesting. Yeah, we can have a little change of pace and chat about this. Well, basically Harmony, I mean, we had, in a sense, I think in crypto, sometimes people don't realize most cryptocurrency companies are not trying to make profit, right? This is maybe a weird way to put it, but on our balance sheet, there is no income. How many foundation, I mean, the company and the foundation basically are just trying to invest into the network and try to make the network better. And given the state of crypto right now, even if we train people who are knowledgeable in doing something, and then they move and try to build things on Ethereum, that's considered okay by us. We don't want to lock you in. We basically still trying to grow the whole space. So it's kind of basically in Harmony's interest to invest in you, and is not like one of those cheesy, soundbite. It's actually just how it works, and this is how it works in the space in general. And for ZK, I mean, in the course, we kind of outlined basically zero knowledge has been the technology that we think has been around for so long. But we know that we think the time is ripe, especially for this year. A lot of industry changing products will come. So we think it's in our interest to do this. And meanwhile, some of us learn it ourselves, like myself. So we're kind of doing it together. So that's basically the incentive. There's no evil plans behind. So you can be rest assured about that.
Okay. So yeah, so that's that. Is there any other question about the assignment? Go ahead, KDE6.
Yeah. Hello. I was wondering if there are any tutors available for people that are not so versed with the beginning steps of this process. Hear me?
Maybe I can see too. I mean, I understand that sometimes in colleges, people would hire other people within the class to try to teach them. We are not going to stop you from doing that. We don't have any ways of stopping you from doing that either. But I mean, the TAs are, in a sense, here. I mean, Cathie and Hunter are here helping. But we don't particularly encourage or facilitate further. I think the bottom line is this stuff is hard, and if assignment 0 is already very challenging for you, that maybe you should consider whether you should want to invest more time into it. It's not to, we don't want to kick you out from the course, nor do we want to just bind you to something that is going to be maybe not the best way to spend your time. So that's really the kind of my feeling about this. If you struggle to learn about this yourself, you will probably have a lot of much harder time later in the course. So this is really just a test of temperature here. But having said that, if you can find some other students within the course, if you arrange financially to pay someone to take you through the process, by all means. We don't encourage or facilitate that, but this is really your choice, I suppose.
Okay. Any other question?
Just put it in the chat if you have anything.
Is that all the questions we have today?
For Slido, yes. So
yeah. I feel that people are probably still warming up to the use of Slido. Nobody voted the questions, etc. And I think it's also a function of the fact that we just had an event called Christmas, and this is also still class 0, and so it's all very new. And assignment 0, I suppose some people actually just breeze it through and didn't have many questions. We don't have to sit here to run out of time. So if we don't have anything, we can also call it a day early, because this setup is really set up for, in particular, the next 3 weeks. I think there you guys and we will all struggle with the assignments. So think about the crazy objective of the course, which I will explain later why is it so crazy and why it has to be like this. But basically, we're trying to, within 3 assignments, get you up to speed so you can actually basically build something as your final project. So you can imagine it's a very intensive thing. Are we expecting an exposure to Starks? Yes. So possibly, that's actually a good question. In the course schedule, we list out some topics, but those are actually quite likely to change. It depends on how these few classes go as well. So your feedback will be important, but we've been in touch with people doing CK Snarks, Starks, and etc. So possibly we can't say for sure yet, but it's one of the things that we thought about. So someone mentioned there's a question in Discord as well.
yeah, I'm trying to check out which one is it. It's not linking me directly to the question.
I can share my screen. I have it pulled up.
Okay. Let me stop my share.
Imagining this is the question here.
I do have a question.
Oh, I think this is related to the one that I asked earlier, but
I'll probably have to look more into this to give an answer. Did it feel like it was addressed by Cathie earlier?
I guess yes, but I just need to build it and see for myself, I guess. Normally, I just read the code and run it through my head, but this is not the typical compiler that I'm used to.
Yeah, when I would read through this question, I also think that it seems a little contradicting, but perhaps we just didn't quite understand what the author means by the sentence there. Let's see. The way I understood it was like, it's like the question, the example they gave in unknowns was talking about array, right? So like when the indices are unknown, then you can't really access that index when like you can make sure that you can access that index at compile time. So I think the way I understood it was that inputs, like we're sure that we are going to have inputs into the circuit. So that's kind of how I understood the differences between the examples they gave versus the multiplier example. But yes, the sentence, the statement that the author wrote about not having generation of constraints depending on conditions that are unknown. It's a little confusing. Let's see. Haven't read the second part of it. I think I'm not sure if you've tried compiling the second part, but I think the second part would not be valid. Mainly because you can't use a function output as a constraint, I believe.
A function output cannot be used as a constraint.
That's as far as what I have run into so far.
Okay.
Or I guess they also check whether the function is non-quadratic. I'm not sure because I've never used a simple function as that. So what I've tried to do is I've tried to use like if else statement in a function, and that would cause it to have a non-quadratic constraint. So that was not allowed. But I'm not sure if it's a simple function as a multiplication would shouldn't fall into the non-quadratic constraint error. So I don't know if, yeah, have you ever tried to compile this though? When you
no, I think I was too scared. I'm just kidding. I wasn't scared, but you know, because I was just trying to replicate, you know, my understanding of the statement.
Right. So yeah, I'm also still trying to explore the differences between the function and template so far. But what I've discovered so far is that it really doesn't work quite well together. So yeah, so I was still kind of exploring how to make the two work well together. But so far I haven't been successful in fitting kind of function into the constraint, function output into a constraint. Yeah.
I see. Okay. So another question would be, you know, since the library is new and you know, something that is kind of simple like this could potentially run into a compile error. Again, that's not confirmed, but you know, is there an alternative library that, you know, that kind of does the same thing, or is Circum the only thing that can be used, or that is in existence?
Yeah, there are certainly many other libraries out there now. We kind of chose Circum because it's probably one of the easiest, and because many of us don't code in Rust, that's also a concern that this is the easiest way probably to work with Solidity, and with some basic, Snark.js, we can do it with Circum. It has its limitations, but all the tools are basically new. That's the good thing and bad thing about the field, is that it's really a lot of these new tools are just made available the past few years. So I think let's try with Circum and see how far you go. At some point, when you come to building your own final project, of course, you're free to use any other tools. But having looked into it, we think that going for Circum for now might be the easiest way to start.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I think if we don't have further questions, we can call it a day, but we can wait for, I guess, a couple more seconds if there's any question.
Yes, I do have an issue trying to join the Discord invitation you sent. You say this I have to expire or something, so I get in the famous icon.
Yeah, so I just sent a new link, which is the official Harmony link. So that one is the one that should get updated regularly. So we do realize that these links expired. So the one that I think it was also sent earlier in the chat right here. So this one should be the one that gets updated regularly. So this is the one that links to the server, because none of these links really links directly to the channel anyways. So once you're into the server, you need to verify before you can join any of the channels. So our channel is under the technical session, and then Zero Knowledge University. So yeah, the chat is the link is in the chat, Zoom chat right now.
Thanks.
Okay, great. Any other question? Okay. If not, I think we can call it a day early. I mean, don't be shy. If you have a question, that's the last chance to see us face to face before the deadline of assignment 0. And right, thanks, Hakwan. Yes, the assignment 0 is due on the 29th, I believe. Right. Let me just confirm. Right, so I know there's a time zone thing, so make sure you know that it's 2 p.m. in Pacific Standard Time, so LA time. So yeah, it's due on the December 29th, and if you want to stay enrolled in this course, you will need to submit it. So again, via email or via DM to either me or Hunter, depending on the first letter of your email address. So on the instructions, you should be able to find online. So pretty much every single, well, not every single, but most of the information that you will need will be found on the course website and the Discord channel. So that should be kind of your first reference as to where to go to find answers to your questions. Okay, so if there's no more question, then I think that will be the end of our session today.
Goodbye, everyone, and good luck.
Thank you.
Do either of you three have any questions, or did you step away from the computer? I think maybe stepping away from the computer. We don't want to cut you short if you have a question, but. Well, I'll have a beginner answer for you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think good programmers are masochists in some way, in the sense that they kind of, I think, stick with things when it's really, really painful for a while, where things aren't making sense and aren't clicking, and they keep going back to the computer and trying to learn a little bit each time. And then I think gradually over time, things start clicking, and a lot of the general concepts start mapping across multiple instances. For instance, across programming languages, you'll start beginning to see kind of similar concepts emerge. I don't know if this is the first time you've programmed before or not, but I think grit is probably one of the best things you can have to learn programs and learn programming, because we're trying to get a computer. Computers are very, very good at what humans are very, very bad at, and humans are very, very good at what computers are bad at. And so trying to span that massive divide between how we think and how computers think just takes a ton of effort and a lot of endurance. So I guess go back to the computer every day and just try a little bit more. Go to YouTube, Google every single time you have a question, Google every single time you get an error, you don't know what it means. Stack Exchange, I think, is oftentimes regarded as maybe the Bible for learning how to program. There's a lot of kind souls who existed before us, who struggled before us, and they've asked questions on GitHub and on Stack Exchange, and finding those repositories of information is, I think, how a lot of people probably learn nowadays, rather than sitting through a textbook and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably my advice.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, if you even just ask a very seasoned programmer about what is constraints, they probably won't know, because this is such a kind of unique to a knowledge of proof thing, rather than a general kind of programming concept. So I think my preference is to learn by examples. So actually, if you stay put with us in this course, the next assignment will be more of, well, the next few assignments hopefully will be more of some kind of case studies, where you will see kind of how these are used in real life to build an applications. So and that will probably make it clear what kind of, like, what are constraints for and why do we need them, you know, for all the applications that we're going to build. So yeah, and I wouldn't suggest to go really deep into, you know, understanding every single mathematical details about the constraint or even how Circum works, but just to understand why we need to use them or the application of them will be more important, at least for this course, unless you will need to learn. ZK functionality will be written into smart contracts or will be built into the infrastructure of blockchain. So it really depends on what you would like to do. If you're just planning to write, say, a game or an application, then a smart contract in smart contract form should suffice, right? So if you realize when you write something in Circum, you can also compile it on Snark.js to a Solidity contract. So that would be kind of part of what you will need, the verification. And then you just kind of write other smart contracts along with it to build an applications. So that would be in Solidity. But if you would need, if you really want to do something in the infrastructure, then you probably have to go deeper into you know, other languages like the actual infrastructure language of Rust. That answers your question. So yeah, so it depends, really depends on your goal. Like what is the product, or what is the application that you would want to build.
So yeah, I mean, so there's kind of, so in the ZK canon, I think we linked to this somewhere in the Notion. Have you came across that syllabus, the ZK canon? Cool. So yeah, so there are a few blog posts that are linked to about privacy, and I mean, kind of at the most general level, we can think about zero knowledge being this method for demonstrating that certain criteria are met without actually kind of showing how that criteria is met. Unlike current systems, for instance, you can meet the criteria of having like the right bank account information, but you have to show over that bank account information to kind of demonstrate that you have the correct information. And so you can think about zero knowledge in terms of privacy, enabling those types of that type of say security, and that's kind of, I think, intertwined a little bit with the previous question in terms of where precisely is the ZK code happening, because it does, I think, link to the scalability idea as well with the idea of ZK rollups. And so I think if you maybe checked out those two things, that will be useful. Thank you. Thank you for your questions. You give us a purpose to be here. Interesting question. So mixed reality, that's like a virtual reality type thing? Or is mixed reality something different? And also vector clocks and causality over a asynchronized network? Or is that something there's a lot of things, a lot of words I haven't thought about before. So I don't know if I can answer this question, but I don't know if Cathie, if you have anything to add to it.
Well, I'm not quite sure what you mean either, but I guess my immediate question is that, is there a necessity for zero knowledge in this kind of application, or is it simply a proof of knowledge, right? Because zero knowledge is an additional requirement of just proof of knowledge as to. So yeah, I'm not quite sure. I guess if there's any application that you can think of why those applications have to be zero knowledge to.
Yeah, and if you could like maybe DM us more information about it, I'm kind of curious to know more. And mixed reality is a virtual reality thing, right? It's like what's the one where it's kind of real life also, but you have augmented reality? Is it something like that? because I guess I thought a little bit about zero knowledge in terms of VR, because I like VR stuff and I like going to kind of, okay, well, never mind. I have thought about it with VR though. Okay, yeah, so just send some more information, and the big ideas I think are more fun for me to think about as well. So I'll happily talk to you about them.
Yeah, I think for this kind of questions, it's like the ones that are most suitable to put on the channel as well. Because I feel like there's definitely a lot of things or ideas that people will have. So yeah, it's probably better than just asking the two of us, because we're no experts in any of these applications or areas. So
yeah, there's a lot of smart people in this class right now, and it seems like a lot of people have a lot more background knowledge on some of these things than any of us in Hakwan have. So they're a good resource. Okay, is that everything? All right, well, if that's everything, I think I'll exit. Bye, everyone, and again, good luck. And hope assignment 0 is very, very informative.